Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Literary Apothecary and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is probably going to be a short one. I am reviewing the short story collection Exhalation by Ted Chiang. This was a science fiction short story collection, had really unique, inventive ideas. My general thoughts about this is that I wanted to enjoy this collection so much more than I actually did. A lot of what was examined here, a lot of the language and the science fiction went way over my head and I wasn't able to grasp it as much as I wanted to. I thought that the idea of combining philosophy with this hard science fiction was brilliant. It was a great idea. It just completely went over my head. I couldn't grasp it. So most of the stories I got a basic understanding of. Like I said, most of the short stories went over my head. There were some that I really enjoyed, and I'll talk about my favorite towards the end of this video. There's one short story novella that I just had to DNF because I was not getting anything from it, and that was the very last short story in this collection, Anxiety is the Dizziness of Freedom, which is my favorite title in this whole collection. But I was sitting there reading it and my eyes were just moving over the page. I wasn't getting anything from it, so I decided this is the last story in the collection. Let me just end it here. A spoiler-free summary of this collection. This was Chiang's second collection of short stories, full of revolutionary ideas and deeply sympathetic characters. Chiang wrestles with the oldest questions on Earth. What is the nature of the universe? What does it mean to be human? And ones that no one has even imagined. Now, I tried to break down our call pile categories, and just keep in mind that a lot of these stories, like I said, went over my head. And so some of these categories are very limited based on what I could understand. And some of these, for a lot of other people that got more of the stories than I did, will be a lot higher. Our characters, I loved our characters. I loved them all. They were fantastic. They were very sympathetic, very unique, very humanistic. Is that even a word? They just felt like real people, even in this science fiction made-up world. Our atmosphere and setting, the setting felt more present in some of the stories than others, and for me, it felt like the atmosphere was completely lacking, which is fine. Ted Chiang had very specific focuses when he was writing these short stories, and that's cool. But when I'm looking at my ratings for a book, I'm looking at each one of these categories individually and seeing where they are in the book. And so that is going, if an author focuses on one category over another, that's going to lower down the rating a little bit because I'm looking at each one of the categories and not just one category when I look at it, rating a book. Our writing style, like I said, for me, it just didn't land. This is not the collection for me. But I do see where the draw is towards Ted Chiang's writing, and I am so happy for those that did mesh with this collection. Our plot, again, this is another one where it felt like it wasn't quite the major focus in a lot of these stories. These stories were more about the ideas that they presented with and examined, and less about what actually happened in the stories and where they happened. Intrigue, I was completely intrigued with each one of these stories, even the ones that I didn't understand, except for the very last one, of course, which I mentioned I DNF'd. I read all the way through these stories. I was intrigued by them. I wanted to understand them more than I did, and that's part of the reason why I was intrigued, to see what kind of kernels I could get out of them. Logic and relationships. So Chiang worked his relationships in very interesting ways in this collection, in these stories. I was really interested to see where these relationships were going to develop, where they were going to start, where they were going to end. I was really intrigued by these relationships. And of course, enjoyment. The stories that I did understand, I thoroughly enjoyed. I loved them. But of course, that's not the case for all of the stories. So from what I did understand, I enjoyed, and others, just because I couldn't understand them, there was still parts that I enjoyed from them, even if I didn't understand the full story. So let's talk about my favorite story in this collection. We talked a lot about what I didn't like in respective ways, terms. I, as always, keep my videos very positive, even when I don't get along with a book. As long as I still have positive things to say about that book, you'll still hear from me about the book. One of my favorite stories, no, my absolute favorite story in this whole collection was titled The Truth of a Fact, The Truth of Feeling. In this story, it's a study of memory, oral versus written history, communication versus tradition, and I have one quote for you from this short story to kind of illustrate Ted Chiang's writing and stuff that I identified with and I was able to understand and enjoy. Quote says, "We don't normally think of it as such, but writing is a technology, which means that a literate person is someone whose thought processes are technologically, that's a hard word to say, mediated." And I loved that quote and I identified it immediately. And so that just goes to show that even though as a collection I didn't get along with it, there were some stories that I really identified with. And so I just want to use this moment to say, if you're reading a short story collection and you don't jive with the stories, it's okay to DNF a story, but keep going if you have the will and the time, because there may be some stories in there that you do jive with and that might really make you think about things in a different way. So that is my short spoiler-free review for Exhalation and Other Stories by Ted Chiang. Let me know in the comments below, what did you think of this collection? I know there's a lot of Ted Chiang fans out there. Let me know in the comments below, if you're a Ted Chiang fan, what is it you love most about his writing? And if you want to see my full review, all of my thoughts on this collection, you can check that out in my Goodreads review, which will be linked down in the description below. As always, keep reading, and I love you all to the moon and back. Bye.